and welcome to the Washington Times Politically Unstable. I'm Kelly Sadler, and today I'm joined by our own Rowan Scarborough, who has covered Russiagate extensively and given Tulsi Gabbard's revelation a few weeks ago and the ongoing investigation at the CIA by Radcliffe, as well as the criminal referrals to the DOJ. There's a lot to unpack here. But Rowan, the first things first, you have covered this since day one, and a lot of our readers know about this because of your reporting well back into 2016. This story is a decade old, but the mainstream media still hasn't gotten it. They still are refusing to cover it, and they don't understand if there's a there there. They think it's ridiculous. It's something that President Trump is bringing up to stomp out the Epstein drama. But there is an actual story. So I'm gonna use this from Twitter because somebody tweeted this the other day, and it's like, I don't understand why Democrats don't see this as the huge blockbuster story it is. And I know you're going to know the answers to these questions, but just a simple yes or no, and then we can jump into your reporting and the importance of this. So for all of those Democrats, or for our viewers out there who don't really understand if this is a big story or not, here are a few questions and answers. Okay, Rowan, was the Steele dossier a fabrication designed to smear Donald Trump? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Did the original draft of the 2017 Intelligence Community Assessment, the ICA, state that Russia did not seek to assist Donald Trump in the 2016 election? Yes or no?
Yes.
Did Barack Obama then direct, using non-standard procedures that cut out the usual intelligence experts at the ground floor who make such assessments, that the ICA be changed to state that Russia did seek to assist Donald Trump in the 2016 election? Yes or no?
I would say no to that.
Okay. There was a meeting, though.
Yes.
Okay, we'll dive in deeper on that. Were the Steele dossier and the modified ICA used to obtain numerous search warrants against Trump's inner circle in 2016? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Did all of the above cause much of the general public to believe the first Trump presidency was illegitimate and greatly reduce the first Trump administration's ability to enact the agenda of the constitutional will of the American electorate who elected him to the presidency? Yes or no?
I would say no.
Okay.
I would, yes.
Go ahead.
He persevered.
He persevered.
Yes, against an unrelenting, bogus attack, 2017, 2018, 2019. But he is such a strong figure that he resisted it and went to the American people and told them how it was a hoax. It was fake news. And he had ultimately a successful presidency. But you're right, Kelly, the forces, what is so good about the Radcliffe report and Tulsi Gabbard's report is that for the first time, it put emphasis on what I would call the fifth player and the fourth player in the Russia hoax, and that's the intelligence community. We never, despite Mueller and Durham and the DOJ IG report, we did not really know what Brennan and Obama and Clapper did vis-a-vis the Russia hoax, and now we know for the first time. Remember, the Russia hoax began with the Hillary Clinton campaign. That's where it began in July 2016. After the DNC was hacked, they decided that they were going to blame the hack on Putin and Trump, and they put out the word to the media, anybody who would listen to them. That's what happened. And in the meantime, they had the Steele dossier on the assembly line starting to come into Washington with all its egregious allegations against Trump. I would say 10 felonies in all that were unfounded. And then that hits town. Christopher Steele arrives in September to start selling it to the Washington Press Corps. And the second player here is the FBI. Mm-hmm. It became the Clinton campaign's co-conspirator. It was more than willing to take the dossier and traffic it all over town. James Comey took it to district court judges to get wiretaps. He took it to the intel community. the FBI leaked it to Senator Reid on the Hill, knowing that he would spread it around. And then Comey takes it, traffic it to the president-elect himself, Tower, to rattle him, basically, because Crossfire Hurricane was underway, the FBI investigation, and he takes it there under the guise that he's going to enlighten Trump on what's going on, when really he did it as a part of Crossfire Hurricane. He tells him there's some salacious material out there, and I wanted you to know about it, but he never tells them it's a Democratic Party smear.
And I mean, he did it as leverage. He basically went into Trump Tower knowing that the incoming president was under investigation, never told him what it was about or what it was based on, to get the upper hand on Donald Trump. Okay, let's start back, though, in 2016 during the campaign, because a lot happened between the Clinton campaign and the Trump campaign and the news media and whatnot. We also have to remember that Hillary Clinton at the time was undergoing an investigation by the FBI on her improper use of emails during while she was then Secretary of State. James Comey also angered a lot of Democrats by basically saying, there was classified material. She did it off her own separate server. She destroyed it, bleach spitted it, tried to cover it up, but we're not going to press any charges. And since Tulsi Gabbard's release, they at the same time didn't really put any investigation. Comey didn't really investigate Hillary Clinton. It was all kind of a ruse. He didn't really want to get into it. But at the same time, they started at that point a Crossfire Hurricane. Crossfire Hurricane, for our audience, was the investigation of the Donald Trump and his campaign and their association with Russia, and if they were working with Russia to overtake or overturn whatever election results may be. At this point, he was still a candidate. He wasn't even he was running for president, but he hadn't won anything yet. Can you talk to me about the origins of this Steele dossier? Because we know it's bogus, but it was legitimized as though everything in there was true, and it was so salacious. I mean, at that time, when you said he was out trafficking it to the news media, no one really picked it up at first, just because it was so outrageous.
Sure. Well, in June, when the DNC was hacked, they decided, the Clinton campaign, the DNC decided they wanted an investigation into Trump and Russia. And they chose Christopher Steele as a former MI6 Russia analyst, intel agent, that he would be, his consulting firm in London would be the best place to go. So they came up with $160,000, the DNC and the campaign. The law firm handled the money, and Fusion GPS became the dark ops team that would handle Steele, that would receive his material, and then be in charge of spreading it all around town, and at some point bringing him into town to get the major factor in this, the media, the news media, the liberal news media, to get them on board with all these allegations. The prime source, it turns out, for Steele was somebody he had met during another contract that he had. The guy was working at the Brookings Institute. His name is Igor Danchenko. He's Russian-born. He was at one time suspected of being a Russian intelligence agent in our country, of trying to obtain classified information. But the FBI that was getting ready to do a wiretap on him bungled the entire case because they thought he had flown back to Europe when he had not. So Danchenko becomes the collector for Christopher Steele and begins meeting with him in London and telling him what he hears in Moscow. And Steele types it up, and later Danchenko, would tell the FBI in January of 2017 and March of 2017 that this guy, Steele, exaggerated what I told him, and that I confirmed none of it. So it was Danchenko who came up with the phrase that titillated the FBI, a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between Trump and the Kremlin. That was in the second tranche of dossier material that arrived in Washington, and that's what got the FBI so excited and Democrats so excited, that one phrase. And it turns out it was all made up, because Danchenko told the FBI it came from a distant associate of Trump world, Sergei Milan, when it did not. He made it up, and in order to earn his money and to get it out there in the dossier. And it was up to John Durham in 2023 to methodically prove how Danchenko never had a source for that explosive sentence that spurred people to get wiretaps and all of that. And it just is one more example of why it's a Russia hoax, and it was a dossier hoax in the person of Igor Danchenko.
So, okay, why did James Comey believe this to be true in the summer of 2016 when he got the dossier? I mean, do you think that he opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into Trump in good faith at the time?
I don't think he liked Trump. I think he wanted to believe the dossier. I think it captivated him. He went hog wild. To think that the highest ranking federal cop in our country would look at these 35 pages of gossip, and such as Trump and the Kremlin were in regular communication, okay? He should have known in July that couldn't possibly be true, because Peter Strzok, who led the investigation, had asked the intel community for anything they had on Trump and the Kremlin nefarious. They had nothing. So why would Comey believe that sentence in the dossier? Then the tale in there about Trump dispatched Michael Cohen, his lawyer, to go to Prague and meet with Putin people and then take a bundle of cash into Romania to pay off hackers. Now, who would believe that? But Comey apparently did, because, as I say, he went hog wild.
Well, Comey wasn't the only one, right? He had to obtain a FISA warrant to wiretap, essentially, Carter Page, who was a campaign advisor to the Trump campaign, but didn't have a formal position. We later learned that that wiretap was based on the Steele dossier. It was based on bogus information, but the FISA court system is legitimate, and they did issue it.
That's true. They issued 4 of them over a year for Carter Page. And of course, when you're eavesdropping on a campaign worker, you're eavesdropping on the campaign. I mean, anybody he talks with is sucked up into that. And what is so remarkable about this is that, as you said, without the dossier, they don't get any wiretaps. So the FBI essentially lied by telling the court that these things were confirmed, or some of them were confirmed, and they were not. And this is why the court eventually rebuked the FBI, saying that it had misled them. But Danchenko met with the FBI in January 2017 3 times, and he told them, I didn't confirm any of it. Yet they went and got 2 more wiretaps on Carter Page, 3 months apart, 2 more. Even after hearing Danchenko say nothing was confirmed, they didn't alter their affidavits 1%, and they presented it just like nothing had changed. And in March, 4 days before Comey testified to a House committee, Danchenko again tells them, I have found nothing to confirm any of this. Yet 4 days later, Comey opening statement to the House Intelligence Committee is that we have begun an investigation into Russia and Trump and any links between the two. That was devastating to the Trump White House. They're 2 months into office, and all of a sudden the FBI chief is saying something like that based on the dossier. That's all they had.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, but I don't want to interrupt you, but I do for a second, because they had the dossier. They got the FISA court to issue to follow wiretap Carter Page. They opened Crossfire Hurricane in the summer of 2016. So although Comey said, "Oh, we're going to open an investigation," they had that investigation was ongoing, and they were doing their very best to try to find something definitive to tie President Trump to Russia. But by the single fact that they opened that investigation in the first place, based on their own delusions, then legitimized the story to the news media. So James Comey, who was out of luck just fishing the dossier around, circulating the dossier around to liberal news media, then could go tell them, "Oh, and we opened an investigation," give it credence. Isn't that kind of what set the narrative on fire? The fact that he opened this investigation in 2016 in the first place based on nothing?
Sure, without a doubt. And so we know that what the intelligence people, Radcliffe and Gabbard, told us was that they needed this sort of rigged intelligence assessment to finish the game plan. The game plan was 2017. The dossier was going to be cited. The assessment was going to be cited. And then here Comey comes along and announces that everybody in Trump world is under investigation for Russia. And that's just what the Democrats wanted, to bring down Trump. Yes.
Well, I mean, but I think the interesting point here is that this investigation was ongoing. Then November 2016 happens. No one thought at that time, especially after the Access Hollywood tape leaked, you have all of the bad press that Trump had received throughout the entire campaign. No one believed he could actually win the presidency. Then he won. And I think it sent them into hyperdrive, including President Biden, who convened and based on what Gabbard and Radcliffe disclosed, up until that point, there was no hard evidence that that the intel people were receiving that Putin wanted Trump to win the election. And that was the narrative. Like, Putin wanted, they said, we didn't find any of this. If anything, Putin thought Hillary Clinton, like everyone else, was going to win the election. He didn't want to release the garbage he had on her because he wanted to use it as leverage for when she became president of the United States. So this is when, after November 2016, after President Trump wins, is when the head of these intelligence agencies, I should say, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Obama knew about it, went into hyperdrive. Can you kind of take it from there?
That's right. They needed one more piece in the Russia saga to greet Trump as he takes office. The dossier had not been made public yet. They knew about it. Comey had briefed people on it, but how much they could use it was unclear. But if they could put out an intelligence statement that Putin and wanted Trump to win, and that's why he was hacking things, that was going to take the investigation to a new level, something that Adam Schiff could grab onto and run with. And so that's why Obama took charge of this intelligence assessment. He ordered it, and then he set the parameters for it. And then John Brennan excluded people. He excluded a lot of in-house analysts to make sure that he had tight control of what went in there, and which is just what Obama wanted. And so,
and that was the December 2016 intelligence report, where Brennan just basically, you had FBI agents, ground level FBI agents, CIA analysts that are saying, there is no evidence that Putin wanted Trump to win. We really don't have anything to support the veracity of the Steele dossier. And they included lines in that intelligence report despite warnings from career analysts.
Yes. What they banked the Putin language on is a still classified CIA report that they have not disclosed yet. Okay, but if you listen to what Gabbard and Ratcliffe were saying, there's no single source in there. There's no eavesdrop communications. There's no smoking gun. And here's how we know that: because Brennan still needed, despite that secret CIA report, he still needed to use the dossier to make the case for the final assessment. So he put the dossier as an annex, a summary of it as an annex. But then he cited the annex in that pivotal point about Putin aspired. So he took a bunch of junk and he elevated it to a key piece of evidence to nail Trump. And that's what makes all the disclosures of Gabbard and Ratcliffe, that was the most telling.
So when do you believe, based on the timeline and based on your reporting, that Brennan, Clapper, Comey finally knew that the dossier was pure bunk? When do you believe that it all dawned on them that, yeah, they might have thought this isn't reliable information, this isn't confirmed information, but it could possibly be true? When do you think it occurred to them that they knew it was a fabrication that they were never going to prove accurate?
I think when the DOJ IG report came out at the end of 2019 in December, that then when it had in there what Danchenko told the FBI, which was, I didn't confirm any of this. I think for Clapper made some statements after that about it not being reliable. James Comey has never come to atone for his trafficking the dossier. He's never admitted that it was wrong. In fact, in 2018, he asserted it was reliable because it predicted that Putin would use cyber to go after the election, okay? Which it did not. Steele did not predict that. He did not mention cyber and Russia until news broke about the DNC hack. He didn't predict anything. He has more stuff in there that he grabbed off the internet and then tried to claim it was a scoop. And Adam Schiff would do the same thing. He would give Steele credit for scoops that you could have found on the internet before he wrote the dossier. So James Comey is never going to admit that he was captivated by a hoax. He's just not going to do that. Brennan kind of grudgingly, Brennan told the Senate committee when they investigated this in 2019, 2020, that I stayed clear of the dossier. So some people now are accusing him of lying to the Senate because, in fact, he elevated it into the body of the report. So he was sort of conceding by omission that he didn't believe in the dossier because he was trying to cover his butt when he was talking to the Senate.
Let's talk about the Senate report, the Senate 2020 report, because that has been used by Democrats and the mainstream media to say, listen, the Senate 2020 report came out and it basically said that Russia did try to influence the election. Everything that we've been saying and reporting on is justified based off of that report. No retractions, or we don't need to give up our Pulitzers because the 2020 Senate report that, Marco Rubio was a part of validates all of the work that we've done to this point.
To me, the Senate Intelligence Committee is a get along, go along committee when it comes to the intelligence establishment. They do not rock the boat very often, and especially under the leadership that they had. Unlike Devin Nunes, over on the House intelligence side, they went to war with the FBI. That he and Kash Patel demanded documents, threatened the FBI, and finally was able to put out a 2018 report that said the FBI screwed up. They used the dossier to get wiretaps. To me, the Senate committee was too polite in the way they investigated that ICA. I don't believe they had the documents that Gabbard and Ratcliffe have put out for the first time. I think if they had the documents showing how Obama was micromanaging this process, I think they would have asked a lot tougher questions about how did you arrive at this Putin is trying to help Trump, and how much did you actually use the dossier? Don't let Brennan just say to you, oh, we put it in the annex. Nail him down on what they did.
Well, this to me is a case of garbage in, garbage out, right? The 2020 Senate committee report based its report on what it was fed by the FBI, what it was given by Brennan, by Clapper, by Comey, and they weren't given the what was truly going on. And they didn't investigate and they didn't question anything. And so based on what they were fed, put out that report. And just for our viewers, like, I am not saying, and I don't believe, Rowan, you are, that Russia didn't try to interfere in the 2016 election. Russia tries to interfere in every single US election throughout, the Cold War and beyond. This is just something that the KGB does, whether it's never altered the outcome of an election by rigging election machines or changing any votes. It's an influence operation. And yes, it paid like $10,000 to buy some Facebook ads that may or may not have convinced some voters out there. But there was no altering vote counts done by Russia.
No, there wasn't. And that's in the ICA stays true to that one fact that the bureaucracy was telling them. There's no evidence that they got in and altered vote machines or tried. And that's the last point in the ICA, that they didn't mess with the tally. So they did stay true there. But, buying Facebook ads and putting some bots on Twitter and stuff like that, big deal. China's floating bots out all the time during elections, and so are other adversaries. Iran is doing the same thing. But the one place if they did hack the DNC, and some people think they didn't, some people think they did, but that was a major event because the stuff leaked out and people wrote about it, and the Clinton campaign had to respond to it. So, yeah.
Well, and that was the Donna Brazile giving Hillary Clinton questions in advance of the debate that she'd be asking. A lot of kind of dirty secrets were exposed because of that hack, but nothing that altered the outcome. It was a behind the scenes kind of feeding frenzy. But at the same time, you had these U.S. intelligence agents try to starting the Donald Trump feeding frenzy of the Russia collusion stuff. And listen, I was in the White House in 2017 and 2018, and this plagued us forever. I mean, it was once James Comey was fired for due reason, right? Like, he was fired because he needed to go. He then leaks notes of, Crossfire Hurricane and the investigation to one of his friends who gives it to the New York Times. And then you have a full-blown special counsel Mueller investigation that went on for years until Mueller came out and didn't find anything. And you could just feel the Democrats on Capitol Hill, Adam Schiff, Eric Swalwell, all Nancy Pelosi, all just foaming at the mouth. We're going to get impeachment. We're going to start with impeachment as soon as Mueller comes out with the explosive evidence that Trump and Putin worked together to win the 2016 election. And it was a dud. I mean, even Mueller's testimony on Capitol Hill, I mean, he reminded me of Joe Biden. He was cognitively impaired. Everything just kind of fizzled out.
And there were two things that the ICA did not mention. One was that the Russians tried to hack the RNC. They tried, but it was better defended. It had a cybersecurity office, and it rebuffed. The DNC had a minimal cybersecurity office, and their emails were easy to hack. And that should have been put into the ICA, and it was left out of it. Number two, Russian intelligence penetrated Steele's source network and planted bogus material that did not help Trump. Okay, that should have been in the ICA two instances where they weren't helping Trump. They were out to get, Putin was out trying to get Trump and damaging.
Well, I mean, because that would have refuted the narrative that they were pushing to delegitimize President Trump. You know, all of this has been reported. The intelligence reports that Tulsi Gabbard declassified and Radcliffe declassified show exactly kind of how pervasive the heads of these intelligence agencies at the time were to delegitimize the first Trump presidency. The mainstream media ran with it because they hated Donald Trump. They're a bunch of leftists anyway. Right now, we're in 2025. This story is a decade old. You have President Trump who lost in 2020, but came back, persevered, won in 2024. You have President Trump now truthing out, there will be no justice until, and then there was the heads of, I think, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Obama behind bars. It was a meme. It was silly. It's something that, but what should the ramifications be for this level of deep state corruption? And do you think there'll be any?
Well, if they do another special counsel, I think President Trump is tired of special counsels lurking out. Someone said special counsel, for Maxwell. You don't want that. They have someone rummaging through 30,000 pages of documents and then leaking this and that. And if you do another special counsel on the Russia hoax, they had Durham, they had the IG. And I just think it would be overkill, too much looking past when Trump has this very futuristic agenda. I mean, the GDP grew by 3% in the last quarter. That validates what he's doing. And I think the president wants to look more forward than back. It would be a tall effort if AG Bondi decides to bring criminal charges, against. First of all, the jury pool would be DC, and the jury pool has already shown they're not going to convict a Trump detractor. They're just not going to do it. And so maybe there's something between filing charges and filing a Justice Department report that takes Brennan, Clapper, and Comey to task, something like that.
I agree with you. I personally would like to see some accountability here. There has been none. I feel like it was a coup against President Trump, and they got away with it. And there feels like there's a little bit injustice there. And then you have all the lawfare that President Trump was hit with between 2020 and 2024. That's not related, but I have heard that statute of limitations has run out for criminal charges on many of the things that these bureaucrats did back in 2016 through 2020. However, President Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence was raided by the FBI. And some conspiracy theorists, who knows, believe the reason it was raided was for the intelligence agencies to get their hands back on this evidence that President Trump had, telling the tale of 2016, telling the tale of their corruption. And if that was the case, then the statute of limitations no longer applies. It's free to pursue. I mean, what credence do you give that theory? Let's just call it, it's purely fictional at this point, but is there something to it or not?
Well, I'm sure that the Biden Justice Department was very interested in what Trump had, what he took with him, and so they got to look at it. And I think maybe that sufficed to satisfy them that there's nothing in there that he shouldn't have taken with him in terms of the Russia hoax. So I doubt it. What you're saying, Kelly, is so true. Biden said from the White House at the podium, "I'm going to make sure Donald Trump can never be a candidate again." That's what he said. "I'm personally taking charge of that." And then look what happened. A special counsel looking at the election, looking at classified documents. The prosecutor in Atlanta, who the White House helped to file charges there. So he was a martyr. He was a victim of the Democrats. There's no doubt about it. And how to rectify that? No.
Well, I think we just need to marvel at how much President Trump has overcome. The deep state wanted to take him out. They never wanted him to win the presidency in 2024. And yet he did. And I think, I agree with you. We need to be forward looking here. He's been in office for 6 months. Look at the trade deals that he has. Look at the GDP number that surpassed all of the analysts' expectations. Just winning across the board, going after men competing against women in sports, trying to dismantle the education bureaucracy and return that power back to the states. It's a long list of accomplishments, and he's just gotten started. But I mean, it's amazing. It's just amazing to me. And then especially after January 6th, every single thing they tried to do to take him out, he overcame, and he is now delivering for the American people.
His resilience is incredible. I mean, to have to sit in a trial with Alvin Bragg trying to convict him over a non-disclosure agreement with a woman and to put him in prison for 200 years. I mean, that's so crazy. And then meanwhile, the New York AG is trying to take the Trump organization from him on bank loans that he repaid on time. And there were no complaints. Not one banker complained about their relationship with him, his appraisals of property, anything like that. It's so crazy, but that's what the Democratic Party is today. They believe they have an innate right to power, and if someone keeps them out of power, there's hell to pay. And that's what they did to Trump. They wanted to vanquish him so he could never come back. Biden said it from the White House. I'm going to make sure he's never a candidate again. And they failed. They failed because he's so resilient.
Well, Rowan Scarborough, thank you so much for joining me today and shedding light on this entire story. And I think I believe it's a blockbuster story of basically triumph that unfortunately, if you're not a reader of the Washington Times, you might not know about.
Well, I enjoyed it. Thanks, Kelly, very much for having me on.
Thank you.